Hey everyone, so One Piece chapter 1020 just came out, and this was a really good chapter. I liked each of the 3 scenes that we got this chapter. I know the one that everyone wants to talk about is, of course, the Robin scene, because this was the first chapter in God knows how long that we've actually gotten to focus on just Robin as a character. But we will get to that. I want to take it step by step, starting from the beginning of the chapter. Also, good news is we're almost at our goal of 200 plushies sold. If we hit 200, then I promised a Marineford analysis video. Since we're so close, I was able to get the deadline extended 1 more week. So we have 1 more week from today to hit 200. So get yours today. So to start with, Kaido and Yamato. Yamato seems to be holding up fairly well against Kaido, even clashing with their fire breath attacks. And, even if it's clear that Yamato is not exactly giving Kaido that much of a challenge, like it doesn't appear that Yamato has injured Kaido in any sort of way, and she is clearly the one who's on the back foot in this battle, the fact that she is able to go toe-to-toe with him for any period of time, especially when Kaido is in hybrid form, is really impressive. So, that aside, I think the more interesting point of this was finding out 2 things. So one, obviously her Devil Fruit ability. I am not big on Japanese lore and mythology, so when I had to naturally go and Google what a Makami is, and it is a scary dog. A Makami is a weird eel-like looking white dog. I was not expecting that to be the appearance of it after I found out that this is Yamato's fruit, because it just doesn't, I don't know, if you look it up, it's this long snake-like dog, but like really snake-like, like an eel, not just like a long dog, like a straight-up eel-looking dog. Like it's a really long, flat dog. But I have seen some alternate drawings of it, so maybe there's just different depictions of what a Makami looks like. I don't know that much about it. I think we were all expecting a white tiger, but I also don't really know if a white tiger is what that sort of mythical creature represents in Japanese mythology, so maybe a Makami makes a lot more sense. Kaido did say that it was a guardian deity of Wano, so that follows that is what Yamato would have eaten, because that fits with Yamato's character in terms of what Yamato wants to be for the nation of Wano. So makes sense. I guess that there's not as much of a contrast between the blue dragon and the Makami. I don't know if there's a symbolic or lore-based relationship between those 2 creatures, but it's good to know that this is what Yamato's ability is, and it does seem to be fairly strong. The other interesting thing that we learned here that I would have liked clarification on for a long time, so I'm kind of glad that we got it, and maybe I'm reading a little too much into it here, but it does make sense to me, which is the nature of Kaido's relationship with Orochi, so why Kaido valued Orochi for so long. So for a lot of us, we were wondering for the longest time what was the point of Kaido having Orochi as a puppet in his place to rule Wano, when Kaido could naturally have easily taken over at any point in time if he wanted. It did not seem as though Orochi offered any sort of concrete benefit to Kaido. To me, I think, aside from, we could headcanon certain things, like, okay, it's easier to have someone from Wano in place to kind of keep the nation sort of in a more easier than just having a pirate take over, just having an actual Kurozumi or established member of Wano nobility essentially ruling the place, so as to make it at least a little more palatable for the citizens, if that makes sense. But at least here, Kaido pointed out one thing that seems to make more sense to me, which is that Orochi turned the nation into a weapons factory. So that just makes a little more sense now, in that Orochi did have a job that directly helped Kaido, that Kaido himself probably doesn't want to do because Kaido's a pirate. So being the person in charge of actually turning the entire nation into a weapons factory, turning the entire nation into a source of labor for Kaido, a source of production for Kaido, just a giant workhouse factory for Kaido, that is a job that Orochi was actually very useful for. So it just makes sense. Kaido's a pirate, he's a Yonko, he's doing other things in the world. It makes way more sense for him to just have somebody, a puppet, set up in place to essentially be the businessman that turns Wano, this entire country, into a little business that's really beneficial to him. So I like that was established, and it also makes a little more sense why now would be a good time for Kaido to basically chop off Orochi's head and start, this new phase of Wano, where at least Kaido wants to be the one clearly in charge and put Yamato, now his own child, into the throne of Wano, so having direct influence over the country. Simply because, look at Kaido's timeline right now, right? The first introduction we got of Kaido, chapter 795, Kaido was talking about now it's time to start the world's greatest war. So if now it's the time to start the world's greatest war, then, the factory's set up. We don't really need Orochi anymore. He's kind of laid the foundation of everything that needs to be set. The people of Wano don't really need their trust anymore. Kaido's intending to turn it into just a haven for pirates, like a pirate war zone, world of violence, something along those lines is what he said during the banquet. And so, he's got his weapons, he's got his factory set up, doesn't really need Orochi or the people of Wano anymore, so it lines up why now is a good time to get rid of Orochi. So, I like that was all, at least, maybe I'm reading a little too much into it, but that's how I interpreted what Kaido just said about Orochi being really useful as a tyrant for having turned Wano into a weapons factory. So, I like that little clarification. Let's talk about Robin down below. Because the Kaido Yamato, we got our little glimpse of it, got it established that, Yamato's doing a fine job holding Kaido off, and we found out what Yamato's fruit is, but I don't know how much more we're going to be peeking into that until it's actually time for something interesting to happen there, such as a backstory, or Luffy's return, or Yamato being defeated, something along those lines. So, down below, Robin and Brook versus Black Maria. So, I'll say this right away. I figured from the start that this would be more so Robin's fight than Brook's fight, just because of the way the matchup is. Robin and Black Maria, I mentioned a little while back that Black Maria gives me a little bit of, Miss All Sunday vibes from Robin herself way back in the day. Oda likes his girl-on-girl fights. It just felt a little bit more like this is going to be Robin's time to shine, kind of like the Chopper and Usopp versus the Mr. 4 duo, where really it was a team fight, but really it was a little bit more, it was a more Usopp-centric fight. Like, that was really his story. Chopper got a better fight, more suited to himself, against Gedatsu in the Skypiea arc right afterwards. So, this Robin and Brook fight, yeah, it's unfortunate. I think we all realized that Brook was not going to be the star of the show here, but man, he did show out this battle. So, we'll get to Brook as well in a second. But what I liked about this whole fight is that, at least from what we've gotten of it so far, is that it finally does pick back up a little bit on, because Robin, I feel like, how do I say this? She's given off a little bit, she's been like kind of an NPC character. Well, that's redundant, right? NPC character. NPC. I don't know, she's given off NPC vibes for like a long while in the story, in that, like, just who she is, what her past was, where she came from, how she feels about the current situation, and how she is with how her life has changed now that she's with the Scrots and everything. Oda doesn't really touch on that much, right? So she's mostly there to offer, small comments, bits of exposition, sometimes jokes. I think that's been part of my frustration with Robin. I'm happy to see here, to me this is at least a start, right? This is a start into looking back at like who Robin is as a character and where she came from. I was definitely shocked to see Clover, Ovia, Saul. Saul, for some reason, hit me the most just because, Saul's a giant. So, not just because I liked Saul the best out of those three characters, but also just Saul's a giant. It just felt really, really strange seeing Saul here of all places. And obviously, we knew that something's up, but it was just, it sounds generic, but it was a flash from the past. It was just really, really strange to see Robin interacting with any of those figures at all. And I'm glad to see that Robin was not fooled. Very interesting to note that Black Maria's ability can create illusions like that, so there's a lot of potential here to what she could be doing. And I mentioned this before, that I like the fact that the Tobiroppo, even though they are all zone users, which could just make for very straightforward fighting styles, the fact is that they all have some sort of twist to what they can do. Like Sasaki was flying around last chapter, Who's Who has Rokushiki, Black Maria apparently illusions, things like that. So Queen, of course, with the cybernetic enhancements. So I think each Tobiroppo, not just Tobiroppo, each Tobiroppo and Calamity is going to have a lot more up their sleeve than just being really strong zone users. So like that on Black Maria's end. I like Robin acknowledging that, her being smart enough, because that's in character for her being smart enough to immediately see through those illusions. And I like the fact that we're touching on Brook, his past again, that he's seen visions and daydreams and everything like that of his former companions who he had to watch slowly die one by one in front of his eyes for 50 years. So both of these guys, they're not the ones who are going to be falling for these type of shenanigans from Black Maria. And I think the vibe of the fight, because Oda likes to have the vibe of certain characters match up. Nami and Ulti, beyond just being like two women, for example, they're both kind of hard-headed, stubborn characters that do have a tendency to snap. Frankie and Sasaki, both tank-like characters. There's generally some sort of connection between the opponents and the Straw Hats throughout a fight, so I like the fact that with Black Maria, it does seem to be a bit of a spooky haunted mansion sort of vibe, with Brooke commenting on that, which is funny. Obviously, Brooke had this little dynamic going in Thriller Bark as well, which was the original haunted mansion vibe. But Brooke and Robin, both of those, they both fit. Robin was a very scary, creepy sort of character for a long time, and she still has a macabre sense of humor. And Brooke, of course, is Brooke, the walking, talking skeleton. Don't need to expand on that. So, just generally, I like the setup of this fight. I like where it's headed so far. Again, we're still touching on the things that, make Robin Robin. Black Maria pointing out that, you're too much of a burden, the Straw Hats will abandon you, etc., etc. She viewed the Sanji incident as basically Sanji throwing Robin under the bus, as usual, and trying to point that out to Robin. Robin, of course, is way, way, way past that. She knows that the Straw Hats would die for her, and she actually appreciates why Sanji was able to do what he did, right? Because she realizes what a difficult thing that is for Sanji to do, considering his character, right? So she actually really appreciates that. This also goes back a little bit to Zoe, where Robin mentioned that, I have strong crewmates who can protect me nowadays. I like the fact that we are getting these little, finally some little insights into how Robin feels about, her life from what it was before to what it is now, where she has this group of people that she can trust, because we don't really get a lot of, she's not a very vocal or expressive character about anything like that. So the Zoe incident followed up by this, I like those two little lines from her, basically acknowledging how where she is now is so secure in her place in this crew that she would never view something like Sanji calling for help as like a betrayal or anything like that, like she would back in the day. Now she views that as, if anything, like a sign of greater trust, greater loyalty, or greater faith in her, right? So, and greater faith in her as a crewmate. Sorry, I'm stumbling a little bit, but you guys get the general idea. So I like all of that. I hope that we get a little bit more out of Robin over the course of this fight. I hope that wasn't the strongest moment for her. She did also mention that this is the, I think, first time in the series of Robin mentioning that Luffy will be the Pirate King, or she literally referred to Luffy as the Pirate King. So I think we've gotten almost all of the Straw Hats who have said that. I think we might still be waiting on Frankie. Not 100% sure, kind of got to go through the notes again, but I think we've gotten almost all the Straw Hats to say Luffy is or will be the Pirate King. So I still hope we get a little bit more out of Robin, because to me this was kind of just checking off a few boxes that we already knew about her character. It's just nice to see it a little vocalized. We knew that Robin is very secure in her place as the crew. It's just nice in her place in the crew, and she has great faith in her crew, and she appreciates the crew having faith in her. It's just nice to see that vocalized a little bit, but I would like to see a little bit more, if we can dig a little bit deeper into that as the fight progresses, because Black Maria was doing, the taunt that she was throwing at Robin, which was like, ha ha ha, you're too much of a burden to the crew. That's something it's like a very generic taunt at this point in the series. Robin is so far past that it doesn't really bring out much more new dramatic material or anything like that. So interested to see how the fight progresses. Really interested in the giant version of her that she's going to be creating now to fight with. We knew that she could create giant limbs and such in the past, but I think this is the first time we're going to get to see the full extent of what Robin can do with her abilities, and it just fits. Black Maria, giant Spider-Woman. Robin can create a giant version of herself with spider webs of hands. She can do the infinite amount of limbs as far as we know, so it just seems like a really fitting matchup. And I like the fact that, Brooke was able to help out with the ice versus fire sort of dynamic as well. So Brooke, I hope he still gets his shine throughout this fight, but I do feel like it's set up to be a bit more of a big Robin victory, if anything. But I should add that, okay, so I'm going to get a lot of comments basically asking well, Morge, doesn't it look like this is the setup for the Straw Hats to win, etc., etc.? I had a raid failing video set up for last Friday. I swapped it out for something else, just because it's not, how do I say this? I'm gonna wait a little bit, because I'm still not sold at all on the Jinbei fight or the Frankie fight. Not even this fight, but I'm going to wait a little bit at the very least to see how Oda deals with these initial clashes with the Tobi Roppo, and how I feel at the end of them, okay? before I definitively come back and say, like, I'm very confident that this is not the end. I'm confident that the raid will fail, right? I will at least wait it out. I will at least wait it out because I don't want to drop a video giving a bunch of reasons and then the next, the very next chapter, it's like, oh no, Who's Who was definitely defeated. Sasaki was definitely defeated, things like that. So I'm going to at least give this Robin, I'm going to give at least one more chapter. Maybe we get a glimpse of the Sanji fight after that. And then after that, I'll basically drop because I have more reasons beyond just, it doesn't seem to me like the fight's ended. There's more things that have happened over the course of these last 20 chapters that make me think that, yeah, there's more to this arc. I don't think it's ending right here. But I'm at least going to let the Tobiropo fights play out a little bit longer before I put out a video so that I don't have to make another video right after that the very next week, okay? And I don't want to make too many raid fail videos in general. I'm going to try and make the next one my last one, and then we'll just wait it out from then until the end of Act 3. So, Robin stuff. Besides that, we've got the Luffy situation. So Oda's stalling Luffy with basically the Luffy wants his meat to be able to get back into battle. This is just a standard Oda situation of, Luffy's out of the fight, need to stall him for a little bit so that we can get to the part where it's ready for Luffy to kind of come back and take another swing at Kaido. Can't have Luffy come back too quick. So usually Oda he always comes up with something, right? He always comes up with something. I'm not going to go through everything, but like, Skypiea, he was stuck inside a snake. Enies Lobby, he just had a hard time getting to Lucci and Spandam because he had to get through a lot of obstacles to actually get there. Arlong Park, he was stuck under the sea. Against Crocodile, he was stuck in the desert, had to hitch a ride on Pell, get back over there. There's a lot of different ways that Oda comes up with. In this situation, it did look like, okay, knock Luffy down to the sea, have to get the submarine to pick him up. Submarine would chase after Onigashima, and then eventually Luffy would catch up. But Luffy is very, very fast nowadays. He could use Gear 4th, he could fly around. I figured that maybe Oda just wanted to go with the simplest route of just saying, okay, I'm not going to put Luffy in a sort of conundrum or give him some sort of significant obstacle. Luffy's just, he's tired, he's beat up, he just needs some meat. So I think this is the most simple, straightforward, generic way that Oda can kind of just keep Luffy out of the battle, which is I don't know, he just needs some more meat. That's just it. He's out of the ocean, he's been rescued, but he needs some more meat, so till he gets that, that could be 5 chapters, 10 chapters, 20 chapters. Who knows how long it will take Luffy to eat enough food that it is time for him to fly back into the fight. Although, of course, Luffy will not be flying back in, it will be Momonosuke. Momonosuke having to overcome his fear of heights, fear of flying. That was the very first thing that he dealt with. That was their first interaction, right? That was their first interaction going all the way back to Punk Hazard. Momo flying Luffy up to get them out of that hole that they'd fallen into, right? So, and Momo at the time did not know how he did it. He did it because he panicked and freaked out, and I think remembered Doflamingo, and that was what got him to Spurf the moment fly Luffy out. So this time Luffy's relying on him, but Momo is going to have to actively do it, right? Actively by choice, fly Luffy over to Onigashima. The last thing to comment on is, of course, Caribou. Caribou, there's a lot that you could speculate as to his role in the actual arc. I don't know if his storyline is set to end in Wano, or if he really is supposed to be a character that just keeps on picking up new pieces of information till he eventually gets to his boss, be that Blackbeard, be that whoever, to give them that information. So Caribou is definitely a wild card at the moment. I'll throw out a simple guess, which is Caribou does seem to be relying a little bit on Luffy to go beat Kaido. Maybe Caribou has some food stored in him. Caribou could give Luffy some food, because Caribou has essentially infinite reserves inside his body. But I don't know if you'd really want that swamp food, so I don't know. That's just a throw-out guess, because Oda can really do whatever he wants at this point with Luffy. Just say, it takes, again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 20, however many chapters it takes to get Luffy his food. That's how long Oda can stall him at the moment. So, that's all for this chapter review. I definitely really enjoyed this chapter, and I'm definitely looking forward to next week's chapter to see whether or not we get a resolution to this Robin fight. A resolution, because I don't think the Tobiropo fights have actually been ending in actual resolutions, but just, surface level victories or deceitful victories, at least for the reader, but let's wait and see. So, that's all for this chapter. definitely get your Morge plush. We're very close to 200, and we've got 1 week left. Marineford analysis, the biggest One Piece project I'll probably ever do, coming if we hit 200. So, talk to y'all later.